So, while talking about history, I have said in passing that the Muslim period was very much a period of colonization. You see, the Marxist historians like to say, oh, the British period was colonization, the earlier period was not. This was the Nehruvian paradigm. Also, Mahatma Gandhi was not to be trusted on that. What I'm saying here is in the same spirit as what was said by Narendra Modi when he was freshly Prime Minister, when he said that India had emancipated itself from 1,000 years of colonization, or 1,200 or something of that order, but at any rate, including the Muslim period. Well, on that I want to defend him. You see, on that he was simply right. Now, again, you shouldn't hold it against present-day Muslims that there was all this Muslim colonization before, just as Dalits shouldn't draw too hateful conclusions from the fact that Brahmins didn't treat them as equals. All these things, I mean, very many unpleasant things have happened in the past, in the childhood of humanity, but, it's best that we put that behind us. Then we come to the modern period. There, of course, decolonization, has gone on since 1947. I mean, the British period is treated quite fairly, at least by historians. It is among more popular writers that you get this demonization of the British. Now, being a European myself, I know that very many Indian viewers are going to say, he's defending the British because he is in solidarity with them. I mean, I've had that comment many times in internet discussions already. Now, first of all, to say anything negative about whites or Westerners is so banal. We have heard it so many hundreds of times that for us, it evokes a yawn. Many Hindus are thinking that they're being very brave, by saying the truth to me, Well, I've heard it so many times before. Now, of course, I don't want to deny that the British have quite a record, that is not so positive. But to harp on that, the very wrong thing with harping on that is not that it offends Europeans. It is that it fixes Hindus in an anachronistic view of history. You see, people talk like they are still in the colonial period. They think that they still have to fight colonization, and that any exaggerations they make are justified by the nobility of their project, which is to undo colonization. But colonization has gone. You see, why don't you grow up? You see, stop this attitude of being up in arms against the colonizer and go back to the time when you were inside your own country, when you were master inside your own country, when you were producing great civilization. India has a lot to be proud of. And the India that we in the West admire, and that many people go to India for, even Indianize their home for, and so on, all this exists. There are many degrees of Indomania, as it is called. It's precisely the great things that India has produced. Is the most popular product perhaps is yoga, which is now all over the place. Very many people practice at least some of it. So, you see, the great things that India has produced, you should go back to that and valorize them, rather than, go back to this negative attitude. You see, again, you can truthfully say the negative things that have happened. There is nothing against that. Only, you see, people who concentrate on that usually forget the good things. Or When they try to talk about the good things, they have an unrealistic view of that, just as they have an unrealistic view of the colonial period. You know, and there again we come back to history, to ancient history. You know, as Ramachandra Guha, the secularist, recently said in an interview, you see, the BJP government has so far produced nothing except claims that ancient Indians had airplanes. That the Mahabharata war was fought with nuclear weapons and stuff like that. You know, I mean, there is a school of Hindu history writers that is satisfied with fairy tales. You know, that there's a pretty childlike form of history writing. And those are not the only Hindus. I'm not saying, look, you see, Hindus are like that. Hindus are, you know, fanciful, you know. No, there are very many Hindus who are not doing that, but they are on the secularist side, mostly. And that is because the Hindu movement has neglected the whole intellectual dimension of its political striving for a restoration of Hindu power. And so there is no grown-up Hindu historiography. So now, I guess now that there is a party somewhat wedded to Hinduism in power, now is the time to come back to real history. You see, I mean, there are so many good things to say about Hindu history that there is no need at all to produce this fanciful history. You see, ancient Indians did not have airplanes, but they did have many things that are worth talking about. So concentrate on that. Concentrate on the positive things. You see, the rest of the world admired India at a time when it was paying attention to those positive things. When yoga was first introduced in the West, you know, people thought highly of India. Many Hindu nationalists produce, you know, they used to produce books, now they produce, you know, internet videos where they claim or where they repeat all the nice things that have been said about Hinduism. And then they quote Romain Rolland, they quote William Faulkner, they quote Arthur Schopenhauer and so on, not realizing that all those people lived 100 years ago. Years ago, still, you know, in the period of hippieism, India was very popular. But ever since, it has gone badly downhill. And so now you have a, you know, very anti-Hindu propaganda being sold to the media consumer as reporting, and that has had its effect. You know, now the view of India is not so positive anymore. So that's the stuff to do something about. And that you do with projecting the positive things in Indian history. And there are many of them. And so this old anti-colonial stuff, I mean, you might get sympathy with people with the same mindset elsewhere. But otherwise, you know, happy people don't go for this, this endless wailing